Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Frissett. And Derek, he is actually now currently supporting Canada's oldest rugby football club, because for our listeners only, he is wearing an Argos hoodie.
Grey Cup
The
down, baby.
Yep, making their return to the Grey Cup for the first time in 2 years, I believe.
Yeah. It's been a
Yeah.
long
Yeah,
2 years.
a long drought from a
Yeah,
championship game.
no, it's been such a long, yeah. No, not making it to the Grey Cup last year was definitely, one of the toughest droughts I think Toronto sports fans have had to deal with. The epic Argos year long. We didn't win the Eastern Final last year,
Mm,
drought. So obviously, there's definitely no other sports teams in Toronto that have a lack of playoff success that even measures missing out on the final for 1 year, right? So
yeah.
I can't think of any, but yeah, Argo's off to the Grey Cup, going to play the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are in every single Grey Cup ever apparently, and but they never win them anyways. They got 2 out of 4 so far, so
Mm.
Argos already beat them once. Argos have never lost to Winnipeg in a Grey Cup in their history. So seven
Mm.
of the Argos' 18 Grey Cups are against Winnipeg.
So if you're listening to this after Winnipeg have lifted the Grey Cup, you know exactly who to blame. But that is a
Yeah,
little
fair enough.
tidbit of Canadian rugby history, is that before these clubs were Canadian football
Yeah.
clubs, they were rugby clubs. And then obviously when law changes came into play and players wanted to get paid, which was something that rugby union frowned upon heavily, they decided to break away and form their own competition. That's the same way that a lot of NFL clubs, or American football clubs, I should say, got their history changed as well by becoming a new sport. But anyway, instead of talking about success, let's talk about misery and lack of
Back up, yeah.
optimism and, harbingers of the Four Horsemen. The Canadian men's rugby team. They
Hey,
have been in Romania. They are having their European tour to close out the year. And you may be asking, if they were in Romania, why didn't they play Romania? Well, it's because they were playing Chile. Now you may be asking, why is a North American test team playing a South American test team in Europe? To which I say, shut up, don't think about it. It's
oh.
People who have been asking have said it's probably down to logistics because Chile are playing the Netherlands and Scotland as well.
Hmm.
And Romania, obviously being a European team hosts and being the host with the most, Canada have decided to take an extra week, and
No.
it's just
And yeah,
easier
yeah.
for everyone to play that. It is
In all
weird that,
honesty, it is very sporting and Canada-like to give Chile a warm-up game before playing the Netherlands.
yeah, absolutely,
Like that was
absolutely.
actually really nice of them, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, let's get into the game itself.
Do we have to?
Well, I'll put it like this. From the kickoff, Canada collected the ball, Chile turned it over and scored a try. So
Yeah,
that
no, like
basically set the tone for the entire game.
the turning point of the game was Chile arrived safely on the bus to the stadium. There's no incident.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, I'd say the
Overtime.
turning point was a
Yeah, that's the
kickoff.
turning. The
Now
turning
that
point of
that
this, honestly, the turning point of this game might have been scheduling it. That might have been the
yeah.
point. I think. Oh, it went downhill from there. Like it's early.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's go back to scheduling because we mentioned that Chile are playing the Netherlands this
Hmm.
coming week, and it was originally, according to America's Rugby News, that it was going to be Canada would face the Netherlands
Hmm.
in this weekend gone. Then they would face Chile, and then they would conclude their tour in Romania. And then obviously plans changed, and now it was only Chile and Romania. So yeah, it's disappointing that that hasn't come to pass. There's also been rumors going around that the Netherlands are going to tour North America next summer. So that would mean that the return that fixture would be back on, but would be in Canada at that point. Which, no complaints from me. Be happy to see that
Be a
if
nice,
it's commutable distance.
probably be a nice vacation for the boys from Netherlands.
Yeah, absolutely. I think. Yeah, I think it'd be, because I think we've had Canada play the Netherlands twice in consecutive years, I think back
Yeah,
in 21 and 22.
that's up.
And so yeah, it feels right that there's the return fixture coming with them coming over. Obviously, maybe a tier one nation, whilst the Lions tour is going on, would like to come over. I know that England were supposed to come over in 21, but obviously COVID
Yeah.
made that
So,
impossible.
so just to recap, in our complete and utter avoidance of talking about this disaster, we've touched on the Grey Cup and the Netherlands schedule
Yeah.
for rugby. Yeah, okay.
If you're not
Hey,
getting
there
the
you go.
point of how badly this game went,
Yeah.
then let's spell it out. Okay, let's just get into it. Half time, the score was Chile 19, Canada 9,
Felt
and
felt
it
like
on
55-9.
yeah, and I think honestly could have been much higher. There was a few issues on Chile's side, like they had obstructions that prevented them from scoring perfectly acceptable tries otherwise. And then there was obviously the indiscipline because, for a point in this game, Canada were leading 6-5 thanks to the boot of Peter Nelson, which we'll talk about a bit later. Um, but yeah, it was 6-5 and then it suddenly wasn't. And it was mainly 6-19 for a big portion of the second half, and then another penalty conceded, so it became 9-19. And then obviously Chile, even though they were 10 points ahead, got a bit of a dressing down in the locker room, being told to stop conceding such easy opportunities. And yeah, they came back out, they turned the screw, and for up until I think like the 70th minute, it was clearly going to be 44-9. And thankfully, Lucas Rumble reminded everyone that he deserves better than this team in
There's a lot of
terms
guys
of
probably.
coaching, leadership, everyone involved off the pitch, really, and was like, you know what, sod it. I'm going to score a try anyway to show you just how great a player I am, and did. And
Mhm.
then Peter Nelson, despite having kicked three penalties very well in this game, decided to miss the conversion, which, you know, I mean, it wasn't going to make a difference in the grand scheme of things, but it kind of also summed up the game. I do believe Chile were comfortable throughout this game, and they were comfortable enough to not score points.
Yeah.
So,
Chile started making plans for what bar they were going to at about halftime.
yeah, that was the dressing down. They were
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that was yeah. It's like
let's just score a few more points,
yeah,
and then when we get to 60 minutes, we can decide where's the best
yeah. What's the best thing?
place to
Oh,
go. We'll wait until
they were
Romania's
playing in
played
the
their
night.
match with Tonga, and then we'll go out with the winners of that. And yeah, it should be
Yeah, no,
fine.
that was. I mean, like I suppose I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like I feel like we have this chat like often where Canada
Yeah,
gets annihilated and then scores like a garbage time try, right? And
yeah,
it's like, oh, like it's nice to see that, they didn't give up. They gave it their all for the full 80 minutes. And it's like, yeah, they got their ass kicked. It doesn't matter, man.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but it's like
It feels like
we have this
pity
chat
at
every
this
time. Like,
point.
I don't like honestly, like, I mean, like who cares? Like you say this, I don't think even Chile cared that they gave up that try. It means nothing to them. They were like even like you kind of even like look at the way that game played out in the second half and stuff. It's like
Mm.
they're like laughing most of the second half. Like they
Yeah,
look like they're having a great time. They don't look like they're in the middle of a test match. They like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like they're like, yeah, like they're like laughing, like right, guys are like coming over after like tackles trying to shove them. They're just like smiling and stuff. Chile was having
yeah.
a great time or whatever. Like I don't think
Chile were
they cared
really
about that at
enjoying
all.
themselves.
Yeah, like right, and it is kind of a thing that it's, we always do kind of go like, where Canada will score that late try. We'll give them the praise for like not giving up and stuff, but it's like, well, you have to play for the other 75 minutes too, right? Like
Mm.
it's It's not like, I mean, if Chile was the Lakers, they would have put Bronny in the second quarter. Like,
Yeah.
I guess how in hand this game was. Like, Bronny would have played like damn near 30 minutes in this game. Like, it's like, and I mean that in a basketball sense too. So like more than a half. Like this was over. Like it was. I don't know. There's a lot. What should we talk about first? Do you have any like actual touch points of this game you want to talk about, or do you just want to go like generally like this sucked? Or should we talk about the bigger conversation and just go, why do we care?
Yeah. No, we're basically going through our greatest hits at the moment of
Yeah.
this is what we're doing, and it's I think the issue is now it's just become so predictable. It's teams that
It,
5 to 10 years ago Canada could easily beat have now they've taken the time to
oh,
invest in their infrastructure, in their
yeah.
facilities, invest in their players, while the prevailing mentality for Rugby Canada and provincial unions as well. I honestly don't know because I feel like everyone's to blame at this point. Is that we are good enough at where we are, and the problem is, and this has been highlighted on like social media. I know someone um responded to a post of like the post match results, and we were saying that it's going to be pretty conclusive that Canada are not going to make the next World Cup, despite the fact that they get three opportunities to
Hmm.
essentially qualify, which again is mainly because the other North American team
Hmm.
to that they're hoping qualifies is also going to be the host of the 2031 World Cup, and not having them at the previous World Cup is a bad look. So they have to try and resolve that issue as well as they can. And so I fully get
I mean,
that I think in the same way that World Rugby and the qualification process for the 2027 World Cup is heavily skewed
I,
in Canada's favor, I don't think it's enough.
dude, I
I
think it's absolutely insane that we're talking about the 2027 World Cup. We shouldn't be talking about 2031. We probably shouldn't talk about 2035. Like,
Yeah.
but honestly, at the rate that this organization is going, the like there I think there might be a legitimate chance that the next time Canada play like right now, and you know what, maybe this is honestly, it's probably just emotion and frustration in watching and sitting through another one of these games. And I also maybe just to pull back the curtain a little bit, maybe made the mistake of rewatching the game just before recording this, because I do usually watch the games twice and I'm not sure that was a good idea this time. So maybe it's just a little bit of frustration and stuff. But I think, what is the actual possibility that the next time Canada plays at the World Cup, it's going to feature a player that wasn't born in 2019? Because all you really got to get to is 2039, right? Because that's
Yeah.
20. Like that would
Yeah.
be 20 years old, right? Like that's
I
all you really got to get to. Like it's not actually that far off out of
yeah.
unfathomability. And it's like, and obviously, and I'm saying that in saying that, like, it's definitely like a lot of hyperbole in what I just said, a lot of
Mhm.
exaggeration. But like, in talking like for 2027, I have no idea why we're talking about qualifying for that World Cup. It's not going to happen.
Mm.
Like, I have
Yeah.
no idea why we're even thinking about that. 2031, like, I don't know. Like, you still need
I think
drastic.
2031 may be possible just
They should
because,
all be
and
possible.
I mean this in the same way as the Canadian men's sevens qualifying for the Olympics in 28. It's because their main competition are the hosts, and they've therefore automatically qualified, which means that there's a
Like, well,
qualification
I mean,
spot for North America
yeah, and I mean,
that should go to Canada.
well, that's
Knowing I've just put that out into the ether, this is going to be Mexico's debut at the
yeah,
men's World Cup.
or like, yeah, but it's like, but at the same time, though, right? It's like, do you want to go to a World Cup because it's like even if you're the USA right now, like I love that the USA is hosting the World Cup. I feel like those players and that organization, like they don't want to go to the World Cup just because they're hosting it. Right. I feel like you don't
Mm,
want that free pass. You still want to kind of earn that or feel like you earn that, even though, like, even if you do get the free pass in hosting, and that's fine.
mm.
But, like, even if you are Canada, like, I feel like it's like you want to feel like you deserve to be there. You're not just there because somebody, like, the states happen to host it. Hey, technically, maybe Canada hosts it. Maybe they toss a game up in, like, Toronto or BC. But maybe they probably won't because by that, but with at the rate that this is going, no one's going to care about men's rugby in Canada by the time 2031 rolls around anyways, right?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I think like I mean I think like that's like my ultimate like frustration and stuff. It's like, I feel like I'm talking like this because like watching this game I think is the ultimate like like why do we care?
Yeah.
Like genuinely, and also not even that, but like what is this team? What is Rugby Canada as an organization? What has the men's team, like what are you giving me to cheer about right now?
Oh, didn't
I
you see Kingsley Jones' notes where, there was positives from the final 10 minutes and
sh-
stuff like that?
okay,
The
what I
same the
did
same
he say
script
that?
we see.
Are you fucking with me right now?
I wish I
No, that's not
swear
real, right?
I swear
That's
to
just
God.
we're just that's a joke, right? He did not say that.
Well, he did
I
say that,
honestly
oh,
didn't see this if it is real.
I need to
Oh,
just
okay.
go through it, but I swear to God I've
Send
seen it.
that
And
to
it,
me if oh my I'll react to that live right now on our show. It'll be we'll get a nice little explicit tag. That's yeah, no, that cannot be something that he actually just said. But like so like that's the point though is I'm like what is there to actually cheer for like on this team? Like it's as you said like I think like a big part of it, like you looking at this game, right? Like in the first half, they didn't get the ball inside Chile's 22 at all, right? They had no trips inside the 22. Um when they got penalties instead of like, instead of going to the corner to attempt to score a try, right? They took the penalties and stuff. And it's like ultimately as part of what we have been talking about, that they play a very predictable, very boring style of play. They're not fun to watch. They're also not fun to watch, and they're getting their ass kicked. You just put a link in this.
yeah.
No,
So
should I
so
open? Do you want me to
I
actually want me to
you
open that?
you open and
Oh
read
my
to
God.
yourself, but as quote from head coach Kingsley Jones, we gifted
No.
4 tries from open play. That's the disappointing part. We worked very, very hard, but we never had field position. It shows that to be able to get field position, to be able to win collisions, get game line is really important. To score a try at the end, keep working the replacements that came on, looking at positives. The guys came on, they did a good job, they put their hand up.
What fucking game is he watching, man? Like, or also like what team? Like, we were gifted four. We gifted 4 tries from open play. Yeah, from open play, bro. It took 28 fucking seconds to score a try. What do you mean from open play? The game, like, dude, I don't
I
even like.
I also just want to point out, looking at positives, the guys that came on, they did a good job. They put their hand up. That is the bare minimum
No, like,
of
but
a
in
rugby
that
player.
they didn't even he didn't even empty the bench, so like they didn't even bring in all those guys.
Yeah.
But like again though, like I think that comes back to like okay, like this is exactly I think what I'm talking about. Like why do we care? Right? Like who like honestly like you know what? And part of that is like yeah, no, I didn't read Kingsley Jones's comments because honestly, I don't care. And like even like reading this quote, I'm like, that's hilarious. It's the same thing he's been saying for years, right? There's going to
Yeah.
be a comment about how the last 10 minutes were really good or whatever, right? Um, it's like we gifted 4 tries from open play, and it's like that's like, yeah, like the 4 tries they gave up were terrible. Like Like they
Yeah.
like, honestly, like all four of them were just like, dude, like that's not a try like a test team should be given. It's too like all of them are too easy, like way too easy, right? Like just literally like two of the tries were just running around the edge.
Yeah.
Like, they were just like, here's our winger. He's fast. He's fast. Andrew Coe, do your best. Do your
Hmm.
best. Try to catch him, Andrew. It'll be fun. It'll be fun for us to watch while you just get burned on the wing, right? Um, they had that. Like, there was obviously that one play. Like, there's so many things. It's like, yeah, like even like I think it was the second try of the second half where like Nick Ben goes back to retrieve a ball that's like bouncing towards the try Canada's try line. He
Yeah.
picks it up. Maybe should have let that go. That looked like it had some gas on it, man. I don't know. That might have gone out. But he picks it up. He kicks the ball
Yeah.
right back to Chile. The entire team decides that I don't know if they had a collective brain cramp and forgot the rule about you have to actually kind of make an effort to retreat back. So the whole team's offside. Like,
Yeah.
whole team is offside, right? And despite the fact that the whole team is offside, which I would like to see that end up in an advantageous defensive position, they threw like three passes to the winger and just was like, yeah, go run. It's Peter Nelson on the wing, man. You'll beat him. It's fine. Go run. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you have that. You have, like I said, they didn't. What is part of this quote? We never had field position. Yes, because you have no attack, right? Like you have
Yeah.
you have no attacking structure, man. Right?
Yeah.
Like this is the least dangerous looking rugby team I think I have ever seen in my life.
Hmm.
Right? There is not, and I think it showed too in like some of those kicks that they elected to take as penalties, right? The three penalties that Nelson scored.
Yeah.
This team they have no belief in themselves that they can score a try. None,
No.
right? Like none, absolutely none, right? And I think part of that is coaching, like the tactics that Kingsley Jones has, were probably outdated the last time Canada played a World Cup quarterfinal, and
Hmm.
like um, like and beyond that too, like you look at other elements of the game, like just the sheer lack of execution, like across the ground, right? Like they had, I think, three different points in this game. Chile held up a maul. One of them was an open play maul. Like
Yeah.
how bad are you playing where you're gonna let a guy go into attack with so little support that the Chile defense is gonna hold you up to create a maul and then take the ball from you? Like how, like, like I don't like, does rugby have an equivalent of being dunked on? Because that might be it, right?
Yeah.
Literally every forward in this game honestly should be embarrassed of the way the team played. Like they got absolutely dummied in all set pieces, every ruck,
Hmm.
like breakdowns, terrible, everything. Like it's bad. Like
Oh
just
yeah. The only forward that
no, none
would
of them.
isn't is Matcham, and that's it because he wasn't
Because he
involved. He
did
wasn't
he didn't sit
subbed
on the
in.
bench. Yeah, he probably didn't sit on the bench properly. Maybe like maybe did one of those like pick up the Gatorade bottle and the lid breaks and spills all over yourself.
Yeah.
Like I don't I think I will say this like with kind of I think like putting out this quote, I think, and I mean this perfectly genuinely, is put Kingsley Jones putting out this quote, I think, and similar things like this over the past 5 years, I think and I mean this completely genuinely, is honestly, it's the absolute best bit of coaching that Kingsley Jones has done over the last 5 years, right? Because like watching a game like this, you look at go to every social media post, right? That has comments, every every blog, every podcast, whatever that's talking about this game, every comment is about how bad Kingsley Jones is as a coach, right? The fire
Yeah.
Kingsley Jones. It's like, what's it going to take to finally get rid of Kingsley Jones, right? We pull up the post match. The quotes are from Kingsley Jones. Now we're talking about how ridiculous and dumb his quotes are, right? And Kingsley Jones has, I think, genuinely has brilliantly done this over the last 5 years. Because now every single loss Rugby Canada has, we talk about how bad Kingsley Jones is and completely ignore how in many cases, and especially this game against Chile, how absolutely awful the team actually plays, right? And how absolutely awful some of the individual performances in this game were.
Hmm.
And and to be perfectly honest with you, there are some guys that like have been on this team for a while that are honestly probably that might actually be lucky that Kingsley Jones is their coach because we don't talk about them because we're too busy talking about how bad Kingsley Jones is. Right? Like
Hmm.
this game was utter crap. Like I said, it's like Andrew Cole was too worried about chirping Chile's players, right? It's like, yeah, like maybe don't go up and rub the like scuff the captain's hair while the ref is talking to him after he gave up a penalty when you're losing by more than 10, right?
Hmm.
And then proceed to in the second half get burned on 2 tries on
Yeah.
your wing, right?
Yeah.
And then have Chile come out of their try celebration and chirp you, right? Get warnings given to you by the ref. Maybe don't do that,
Hmm.
right? Peter Nelson maybe hit somebody on a 2-on-1. Like, yeah, maybe like why are you standing there? You might as well just let them go. Right? Like, why are you just waving your hands? Like, you like at least hit one of them. Like make
Yeah.
them right. Like, because that used to be always the thing that we always talked about with Canada's rugby team, right? Like you go back to like the South African teams when Canada was a relevant rugby playing nation, right? In like the 1990s or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Like, like before half this team was born. Like, when you go back and you'd be like, well,
Hmm.
at least like if you played Canada, you might beat them, but you'll feel it,
Yeah.
right? None of that. None of
No.
that. Like
This.
as we said, Chile's like openly laughing at them in this game.
Yeah.
Like this is
And
it's not good. And I mean, I don't know. I got more players we can like go and pick on their game if we want. But I think like and like yeah, like I don't know. Like there's a lot. It's like there's so much of it, and it's like even like we'll go and be like Kingsley Jones's tactics and everything are so bad. He's not the one on the field. Like you guys got to make a damn tackle every now and then, man. Like like that one try where the guy just blows past Ben Lesage, who's quite frankly one
Mhm.
of the best defensive backs in North America in MLR. Just blows by him,
Yeah.
right? And it's like not like every single player on this team, like I'll go along with your joke. At least the 22 that played, right? And well, maybe like the 23 as a whole, every single one of them had a bad game. Like nobody was good, right? Like nobody did not a single person did anything remotely productively with the ball in hand, like offensively or whatever. And it's like as much as and I just think like ultimately like nobody does anything offensively. All the tries that we give up are way too easy. And it's like I know a lot of this, I think, and I agree with everybody that, has negative things to say about Kingsley Jones and the tactics that he used. But like, like he's not the guy out there making tackles, man. Like you at some point, you like we gotta put this on the players like a little bit. I think it can't just all be Kingsley Jones. And
I
ultimately that's where I'm going, like, that's the
so
most brilliant thing Kingsley Jones has done is everybody hates Kingsley. He's the
I
lightning rod. And I
yeah,
think he's
I
doing great job
so
for that.
this is the thing from my perspective is that yes, it is perfectly reasonable to call out the players for ineffective uh playing,
Yeah.
um, lack of cohesion, lack of
Yeah.
communication between them. But as the thing with rugby, and no matter what level you are, whether it is test level, whether it is club level, whether it is, amateur level, these are all things that can be coached. These are all things that can be changed. It's one of the reasons why Wales were so entertaining to watch back in 2018 and 2019 when they went on their 14
Yeah.
match unbeaten run, is because you knew they weren't the biggest. You knew they weren't the strongest. You knew they weren't the fastest, but they were just such a cohesive unit that every opponent they played would turn around after the game and say, "Well, that's the worst we've played in years. That's the worst. That's the most disjointed I have ever seen my team play." And I go, well, if every opponent to one team says that, maybe it's that team and maybe it's not you. Maybe, and by that I mean Wales would just they trained harder, they improved their fitness to a level that other teams weren't able to match at that point. And there was the first time they beat all their opponents in the pool stage, the first time they beat Australia at a World Cup in 2019. And, they made it to the semi-finals against South Africa, lost by three, and then, the wind was out of their sails. And, New Zealand had lost to England and wanted to take it out on the nearest team they could
Yeah.
find. Um, and that's the thing is that you'll look at some of the guys on this Canadian team and be like, oh, there's a lock that's 6'7". There's a winger that, can go 0 to 30 miles an hour and do 100 meters in about 10 seconds. And it's like, that's great and all, but there's no cohesion. There's no training that's been put behind them to bring it all together as one cohesive unit that can, pass the ball out, split the defense up, get across the gain line. I felt
I,
like I think one of the issues that I had against the last time Canada played Chile was, they go into the line and then the third ruck, it'd be a box kick. And it became
okay.
so predictable that Chile wouldn't even commit their backs to the line because they knew the ball was going to come back, and then they did, and then they were able to break the defense and get over, score a try, and progress into getting to the World Cup.
There was a
They,
play along the same lines as what you're saying. There was a play in this game though too, where Nick, they like I think it was off a line out, and they start working the ball down the backs, and Nick Ben gets the ball, and he looks to pass, and there's a Chilean player standing there.
yeah,
Like the Chilean player was like, I think it's just inside the second half, like 44-ish minutes, and
yeah,
literally like. And it's like part of it, you're kind of like his line speed, but also like watching that, I'm like, part of that's like that guy knew exactly where that play was going. And
yeah.
he was,
It's
and Nick Ben kind
so
of
predictable.
Nick Ben catches that and like
Yeah,
kind of does like the little like tucks the ball back in and goes into contact. But it's like the
yeah,
fact that the guy was there to be like, yeah, that's where the ball's gonna go is like you said, it's like Chile's been doing it against Canada for years now. I mean, technically
yeah,
the last time they played was that World Cup qualifier game, but like
yeah,
I think like there's even though they didn't box kick as much, Chile's Chile like feels like they have their playbook. Like
yeah. It
which I
don't.
mean isn't a very long playbook.
Yeah. And then the question comes, okay, so yeah, we can bring it back to Kingsley Jones. He's a terrible coach, and
Mm.
he should have resigned 3 years ago after Canada last played Chile.
Honestly,
Because
I'm honestly I'm not even mad at Kingsley Jones for doing that, man. If you know what, rugby coaching jobs are hard to come by. If someone's gonna sign you, sign it. Not even mad. Not even. It's the
yeah,
whole
well,
organization, top
it's
down.
it
I'm
should have
more
been
mad
one
at
of
the
those
people that
cases.
re-signed them at this point.
Yeah, that's
And
the point. That's the point I'm about to make
yeah,
is that it's either you resign and you can say I leave with my head held high, or we get rid of you and you
honestly,
become the scapegoat. And when neither of those things happened, and then it was like, and then we were making excuses of saying like, oh, maybe he has a contract for 4 years up until 2023, and breaking that contract would cost even more money that Rugby Canada doesn't have. But then when it came to we're finding a new coach, the rumors already started coming out was, oh, they've just given an extension to Kingsley Jones. And it's yeah, and new
mm,
chairperson, new development head of development for um
cheers.
Canadian players. and you're still going with the tried and true coach that failed to get Canada to the Men's World Cup for the first time. And I think and we've said it before, that's the point where people were like, why should we care
Why
when
should we?
you
That's
clearly
ultimately
don't?
that is ultimately it. And it's like why it is genuinely like why should we care? Like
Yeah.
why should we care about this about the team? And it's like you said, like it's on like it's because it is a thing, and it's like, I know, with obviously what I just said, it's like a little bit of frustration with like, some of the players and stuff from this game too. And like
Yeah.
it's part of it where I'm like, I don't think, and I know we've talked about it before, like for example, like I don't think Peter Nelson is a test level fly half, right? And
No.
I think the attack is suffering for that. Yeah, he can make a kick, but you got to be able to find other guys that can, slot.
Yeah, it that
How?
that is such a negative feedback loop because it's
No,
pick
but
Peter
that,
Nelson.
yeah,
No one else gets the opportunity to
right.
get test
What else?
experience,
Okay,
which
exactly.
means no one is ready for a test
For the
match,
test
which
match.
means you have to pick Peter Nelson.
Yeah.
Begin
And then,
again.
but then that also is like, okay, well, that comes back to Kingsley, right? So it's like, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the thing where we're at, where it's like, okay, yes, that is, you can show frustration in the player for that, of like, maybe like he had a few mistakes in this game that was just like, oh, like, the, Canada earns a penalty, his kick doesn't find touch, right? Like
Yeah.
it's an unacceptable thing at a test level, right?
Yeah.
But like, and mistakes obviously are going to happen. Even the best players in the world are going to make mistakes, but it's like it's too much. And like you said, like, but the fact that there's nobody up the pipeline, and
Mm.
like maybe he is the best option, right? That's on coaching slash organization level.
Yeah.
Right? That's not on Peter Nelson that he's the best fly half available, right? That's on
Yeah.
the rest of the organization and selection and coaching and everything. But ultimately, I'm like, that's why I'm sitting here being like you said, like, why do we care?
Yeah.
Like the whole organization, like you said, like from top down, like Nathan Bombrey, Stephen Aboud, all the way down, right, has kind of showed that they don't really care or seem to care about this team either.
Yeah.
Right. Like, even to the extent where they were like, they put out, Rugby Canada puts out a social post being like, there's no stream for the game, which is just,
Yeah.
even if that stream wasn't available in English or French, right? Like, there was multiple streams and multiple ways to watch this game.
Yeah.
But it's like, by putting out a social media post to say that you can't watch the game is like, okay, like you guys as an organization don't even care now, because you're
Yeah.
just putting out like like at best it's like somebody, you just kind of made a mistake and didn't realize there was, just because TSN wasn't showing it, you just assumed there was going to be no stream. So at
Yeah.
best it's a mistake. At worst, it's, are you somehow trying to deter people from watching your own games? um
Hmm.
right, which also doesn't make any sense. But also, like you kind of said, with that negative feedback loop, right? Like we joked about at the top of the podcast, I am a Toronto sports fan, and
Yeah.
right, and I was born in 1992. So do you know what
Hmm.
that means? Is that I have watched my fair share of terrible sports teams.
Hmm.
um right, and it's like, I think one of the things that, when teams are bad, those teams try to sell you on is the future,
Yeah.
right? You want to get sold on the future. You want to get sold, right? And I know, like, and in a lot of times, like, the sales pitch, like you said, is like, look at, it's like, yeah, we just finished last, but because we finished last, we got to draft Austin Matthews first overall. Right. And it's like, look how like, this is Austin Matthews is going to be one of the best players in the franchise's history. You can build off that hype, and the Leafs are still kind of building off that hype. Please, goddamn, do something in the second round of the playoffs this year. But that's a slight side note. I can't be too mad at this point in the podcast. But like, you do kind of like, you kind of build on that hope, right? Here's all the prospects that are going like
Hmm.
really well. Here's all the growth, and it's like, Rugby Canada's not even like showing us that, right? Like you said, like the negative feedback loop. It's like, okay, like we need to see another fly half play, right? We need
Yeah.
to see some of these younger guys, right? And it's like, yeah, like honestly, great to see Noah Flesh play 80 minutes in his first cap, right? Well, well done. Right. Hopefully a big learning thing. Hopefully he's got some more caps to come, right? Um, and it's like, but like, who are like the players that we're supposed to be excited about? Because it seems like there's a lot of matches too that are like, okay, like a guy will play and then we won't see him again for a bit, and then he'll be in the lineup, but he's doesn't actually get into the game,
Mm,
right? Um, and that's not even going with like the Tyler Duguid of it all, where it's like clearly the best young player, the best prospect we have, is kicking ass in France and is telling
yeah,
French newspapers that he wants to play for France, right? And
yeah,
it's like, man, like that's where the next hope of guys is like, I don't know, it's like
yeah.
look into,
Uh,
right, and it's I
I'm
don't
if
know.
I was in charge of like development for Canadian youth, I'd say go to your parents, go to your grandparents, see if they have a passport for either the UK,
Yeah. Well,
France, New Zealand. Go spend seasons over there because
that's the thing. It's like who can like seeing like, and honestly, like he might not even make the France national team, right?
no,
But like the fact that he's even, and I know he's playing in France, so like
yeah,
it makes sense to say that to a French newspaper, but it's
yeah,
like, but it's kind of like, man, like you're like openly like he could have been playing for Canada for a while, but it's like you're openly turning that down for not even a guarantee to play for a different country, for a chance to play for a different country, a
yeah,
country that you're qualifying for on residency,
yeah. A
right?
5 year residency.
Residency. Like,
Yeah,
why should I care? Like, okay, so like, let's even like to bottle, like let's bottle this a little bit and go like going forward, like until there's like some sort of like major change being made. And I think that I don't know how subtle that sentence was. I think we all know a few of the major changes everybody would like to see. But
hmm
like until those major changes, like we're going into this game against Romania. Like, sell me on why I should watch this game. And don't use the words because you are a passionate Romanian supporter. Right. Like,
Oh, well, okay. Well, that
why
option's
should we?
gone.
And I, yeah, exactly. Now that that option's gone, and that's like, why should we watch? Like, what am I going to get out of that game? Even if they win,
Yeah,
even if they like, and honest, I'll preface that by even if they win, because I think like if they win, it still doesn't change anything. It
yeah,
might make the players feel a little happy, but it doesn't. I feel like it's not going to change the big picture of things, right? Like, even if they win, like, why? Like it's a friendly game against Romania. It's at like is it at 6 a.m. again?
no. This one's at I think it's like 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Sure. On a Saturday,
Yeah.
you could probably find something better to do at 11 a.m. on a Saturday.
Oh, do you know that Scotland are playing at 11 a.m.?
See that? Wow, there you go. That's I was even hey, you can do that. Like I mean, you can do that. You could probably you could like go to a farmer's market or something. Maybe I don't know.
Go for a walk?
Yeah, you could go. We're in Toronto. You can go line up for a Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if they you could go do that. You can go line up for some merch, get some
hmm
go check out the giant friendship bracelet they wrapped around the Sky Dome. Like
Yeah.
there's some things you could quite frankly you could sleep.
Yeah.
Like there's
Have an
unlimited
extra long lie-in.
yeah, there's an on or an average length appropriate length to sleep in depending on what part of the country you're in. Um
Yeah.
but like yeah, okay. So out of all these options, you can go see a movie. Like you
Yeah.
said, you can watch other rugby. You can probably watch other sports. Go to concerts, whatever. So I have all these options this weekend. Why? The Grey Cup is happening. I could
Mm.
watch 45 hours of pregame on TSN because they're not going to show this rugby game on TSN. So I'm assuming it'll be 45 hours of Grey Cup pregame. Why should I watch Canada play Romania? Genuinely.
I
Why?
I cannot answer that because
Exactly. Right. Like
I don't know.
there's nothing for like am I excited about maybe like a young player, but it's like man, like it's just like there's nothing left but like apathy, I guess, like
Yeah.
for this team. Like man, like we beat Chile 56 nothing in
Yeah.
2019, man. Right? Like that's and now we're getting blown out by
Yeah.
30 to them and they're
Yeah.
playing
It and it's because one union cares and wants to see their players and system improve, and the
and,
other is Canada.
yeah, and I think you're right. And I think like even like so the like my whole idea thing of like, why do we care like going into next week? I honestly I don't know why you should tune in to Canada versus Romania. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe honestly, maybe if people stopped watching it, stopped caring, stopped interacting. Because I think the one thing that is significantly worse than frustration from a fan base is apathy.
Yeah.
And I think I mean I think you could see like the apathy is kicking in hard for
Mm.
this team. Right. And I think like too, like, it's not just this weekend, it's gonna be all of next year too. And when you got this team being like just straight up uncompetitive in most outings that they
Yeah.
play in, right? With kind of what feels like no hope for getting better because no changes have happened, right?
Mm.
They don't even play like an exciting brand of rugby. They play a very boring style, right? I don't know who they're gonna play next year, what tournaments they're gonna play in. I know the women's team's playing in the World Cup,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like,
Thank God for the women.
yeah, but that's the whole thing though, is just like, man, like there's literally like it's not even I don't even have to go outside of Rugby Canada to find better, more entertaining rugby options. Right. Like the women, like when I'm like right now, like, okay, like, why do you care about, like, why should we care about watching the men's team? And you're like scratching your head trying to come up with a reason, right? It's like, why do you want to watch the women next year? Right.
Mm.
Unlimited list. Sophie de Goody's the best player in the world. Right. They're number two in the world, heading into the World Cup year. They won the Pacific Four. They beat the Black Ferns. They beat freaking New Zealand in rugby. They beat a
Mm.
team from New Zealand in rugby, right?
Yeah.
And it's like unbelievable season last year. They went through WXV and slaughtered teams without the best player in the world,
Yeah.
and they get her back next year, right? They got you get players like Scurfield are coming back from injuries, right?
Mm.
It's like they are going to be set up to go into the 2025 World Cup. The women are the maybe not the favorite because that's going to be England on home soil.
Mm-hmm.
England hasn't lost since the last World Cup final, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they remember that. But like, so Canada's not going to be the favorite,
Yeah.
but they're going to be one of them.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
genuinely, like the expectations for the women's team is like you need to make the final. Like
Yeah.
that's where expectations should be at, right? It's like last time you got the semifinal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take another step, right? Like
Yeah.
your expectation should be to get to the final, right? And then anything can happen in one game. I think like, and like you said too, like even like, there's going to be, I guess, like a pro women's rugby union competition in like a pro league in North America next year. Is it starting
Yeah.
next year?
Yeah. It starts
Yeah,
in
I haven't been following that as closely as I should be, to be honest.
yeah.
But it starts next year.
So but yeah, it's
But
so
like
basically the
unlimited,
point you're making is there's a lot more
un,
optimism with women's
dude,
rugby.
it's not even like optimism though. It's excitement.
It's passion.
Excitement, passion, right? Like right now, if you were to go with like if you did like a 2x2 grid, right? And it's like you can have on like one axis be like boring and exciting, and the other axis is good or like winning, losing, good, bad slash good, bad,
Yeah.
right? The worst, like the women right now are in the winning slash good, right? And exciting, like quad,
Yeah.
right? They're in the best spot to be, right? The other three, boring but good, right? That's passable because winning's
Yeah.
fun, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're good, yeah, like you can, right?
You can
all
have boring
you
wins, but
you
you
can have
still
boring as
win.
the Springboks. You think South African people care about not scoring tries in World Cup finals? No, because they won
Yeah.
the World Cup finals, right? Um, like it's boring can be fun, right? You can also, if it's a little bit more challenging to pull off, but you can be bad and exciting,
Yeah.
right? You can do that. Right now, Canada's bad and boring.
Yeah.
Or the men's team's bad and boring. They're the worst possible thing you can be right now.
Hmm.
Right? They're bad. They're bad. They're boring, and there's like no seemingly hope on the horizon. They're in the
Yeah.
worst spot. The women's team, that's exciting right now, and it's like they're gonna go to the World Cup. Hopefully, they do well. Also, like women's rugby, North American wise, on a bit of a boom. Right,
Yeah.
a lot of great players. Iona Mare might be the most famous rugby player in the world at this point.
Mm.
Right. Between like obviously, playing really well at the Olympics, but also the Dancing with the Stars thing. Right.
Yeah.
Also, she was in like Sports Illustrated and stuff. She
Yeah. It's
genuinely
pretty.
might be um,
Yeah.
the
Rugby
most
player on
famous
the
rugby
planet.
player in the world. Right. And she's American and stuff. And I believe she's gonna try to play at the World Cup. I think I
I
read
think, yeah, she said that she's
right.
gonna try and make it, which may mean that she misses the 25 World Series, but
You know what?
again,
Good.
good.
Good. Get her away from the 2025 World Series. That's good. Go do
Yeah.
that. Go do that.
Um,
But like,
but yeah, but
yeah,
I fully understand your point. Like the men are playing
women's rugby is how we grow rugby in Canada at this point.
exactly. Yeah, it is by all definition, rugby is now a women's sport in Canada because they're fucking great at it.
They are,
So
yeah, and it's like right, and it's just like because even at that, like, yeah, like I don't even know. Do you want to watch the game next week?
no, like this is the thing.
No.
We'll still talk about the game. We'll still, you know, give a breakdown of it,
Yeah.
win or lose. But even we're not that
Once,
invested to,
yeah.
watch it when it's live.
I think that's the whole thing though. It's like I just like when it comes to this team, I'm almost just like, man, like I just don't care.
Yeah.
Like I've watched it long enough and
Mm.
there's been no changes that I'm just
Yeah.
like yeah, like I just don't like even
It,
like watching this game, it was just kind of like when Chile scored 28 seconds into the game,
yeah.
right? I'm just like, yeah. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sounds about right.
That's what I expected.
Yeah, that's like that sounds about right. And you kind of go and you see like the other games and it's like, um, like it's the thing is like I kind of feel like I talked about a few players earlier in the episode of like, maybe singled some guys out of having like bad games. And it's like part of it is because like I think as a fan, like I've seen these guys play like for the national team, and like MLR before, and I'm like, you're all better than this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what?
Well,
I don't know. Right? What?
speaking of MLR players that aren't
Yeah,
appearing for Canada, Liam Murray is
yeah, and that's
someone
I
who's
mean, but like that's another thing, right? Like again, like what do I have to be excited about?
yeah.
Right? It's like it's not even that you lose, right? Like, yeah, like what you were just about to say, Liam Murray suspended 3 years for PEDs. That's probably his
Mm,
career. He can't even play in
yeah.
MLR, right? Like, I don't know, it was like you can't
Yeah.
what do you do with that info? You're just like, all right, like cool.
Yeah.
Like
Mm,
that's cool. We got guys on PEDs. We got other
yeah.
guys that are trying to play for France instead. Like
Yeah.
I think like the thing I was to say though is like I've seen them like all play better, and it's just like for some reason though it's like like get into the Canada jersey, and it's like it doesn't come together. Guys that are dynamic attacking players in MLR suddenly are not. Guys that go 5, 6, 7 games in a row without missing a tackle in MLR, right? Um, can't hit anybody. right? Or, there's, you have guys that are like dominate breakdowns and stuff. They don't do it for Canada. Um, and it's just like it's disappointing to watch, right? And it's like I know we obviously talk about like the coaching and stuff. The coaching comes into they have an incredibly boring style of play,
Yeah.
but it's even made even worse because they can't execute even that boring style of play. It's just like I don't know, man. Like I think like it just it makes me ultimately I think like I don't know. Like I said, it's like I think a lot of this podcast has come off as me just being like incredibly frustrated with Rugby Canada, right? Um, but I think it's also just like I don't know, man. Like I'm just like the biggest emotion I kind of feel like watching that game. It's just I'm just like sad now.
Yeah.
Like watching, you know what I mean? Like watching rugby, like I feel like in a way, like it used to be fun,
Mm.
right? Or watching Rugby Canada used to be fun, right? Like, like even going back to like, when I got like when I started getting into rugby and like, you know, in like when I started playing in like 2007 or whatever, right? Like it's like part of the appeal of like watching it was like it was fun because like Canada was good at it,
Mm.
right? And it was like that made it like that did it made it fun to watch. And even like even like the 2015 World Cup where it's like they didn't actually win a game, but those games were fun. They were
Mm.
competitive games, right? Like the try that like DTH scored against Italy or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
even in a game that they lost, it was like, damn, like that was arguably the try of the tournament. Well, maybe not because there was that one try that Japan scored against South Africa that beat them, but that's besides the
Yeah, yeah.
um.
But yeah, I get what you're
Yeah, but it's
saying.
like
It's like
sad now.
it's it is,
Like
but it just comes back to the question, why should we care?
I agree, and it's like to think of it like to me too though. Like listening to us recording this, like we're obviously like huge rugby fans.
Yeah.
We created a podcast to talk about rugby, and honestly, like it saddens me that we're talking why should we care? Like we're saying things like I don't even want like I genuinely don't want to watch the game next week. Like I probably will again, like because we're gonna have to talk about it on the podcast. But it's like, yeah, like I don't have fun watching this team anymore. It actually like makes me sad watching them. Like
Mm.
it's not like it's like I'm just like you said, like why like I feel like you said like they Rugby Canada as a whole organization, top down, like whatever, all the big names that you can think,
Yeah.
they don't seem to care about this team.
Mm.
And now I think I'm kind of genuinely at the point of like, why should I? Like if
Yeah.
you don't care, I don't. Right?
Yeah.
Like, are you gonna put out another post this week that's like, yeah, you can't watch the game, even though you can, right? Like, like we joke
Yeah.
about it, but like, do I really don't want to listen to Kingsley Jones say that like, oh, the
Yeah.
last 20 minutes was great.
I'm
Like,
it,
I
it's
feel like
enough.
I'm just, yeah, I'm honestly like, there's one game left. Like, I feel like I'm like, I don't know, like, feel like I'm done watching this team. Is ultimately the
Takeaway, yeah.
takeaway that I'm on. Like, yeah, like, why should I care? And it's like that, honestly, like, it does make me sad because it's like, because of just how much I used to love watching this team. Like, even if they lost or whatever, like, they were fun, man. Like, at one point. Like even like they were fun even with some of these like current players on it or whatever. Like those times were fun,
Mm.
right? And it's like, like even at the World Cup, like you got like the last World Cup and stuff. It's like you got like the funny moments of like, Andrew Quattrin trying to put on whose jersey was it from South Africa or what,
Yeah.
right? And it's like Berger, I think it was Berger, right?
Mm.
And like she tried to put that on, and it's like, man, like I know you just lost to South Africa at the World Cup, but it's like, man, like we're having fun watching you do it though, right? And it's like there's other games too that it's like, like hey, like even if you lost to the States and it was a tight one, you can lose in an entertaining way. Now when they lose to the States, it's frustrating, right? Beyond frustrating,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Chile used to be like a fun game that we could be like, all right, sweet, we're gonna go see some. We're gonna see like Kainoa Lloyd put up some freaking epic tries in this game
Yeah.
because it's Chile or
Yeah,
whatever.
and now
Now,
it feels if Kainoa Lloyd's in the team, it's because
oh
there's no
yeah,
effort, there's nothing.
well,
So
I mean, it's not even that wasn't meant to be anything towards Kainoa Lloyd. It was just like he
yeah,
scored
but I
three
but I get where you
tries
I
against
that's what I
Chile,
mean. I get where you're coming
but
from, and
yeah,
like
and it's
that's the thing. It's so hard
but
to
it's also
care
like it
about
feels.
this team,
I
right? We need to move on because we're just going in our own negative feedback loop at this point, where it's just downward
Well,
spiral.
everything about this is a negative feedback loop, though.
Yeah,
Hey,
so
that's
I
what
am going to
the
make the
podcast has
decision
been.
that we need to move on from this and talk about something else. Let's talk about something in which we know a Canadian team won because only Canadian teams took part. I'm referring to
You know what that
the,
means, though? That means a lot of Canadian teams lost.
I know, but a lot of Canadian teams won as well. So it cancels it out. It's
No,
fine. I'm talking about the U Sports Women's Championship that took place. There were a total of 8 teams taking part in Prince Edward Island. That includes PEI, Arcadia, Laval, Guelph, the Ottawa GGs. And third place, beating the GGs, was Queens. And then for the first time ever, there was a guarantee that a team from BC would win the U Sports Women's Championship. Can you believe that? That a BC team hadn't won the women's championship at this point?
yeah, no, shocking, shocking. I
It,
mean, like
uh,
Quebec's women or
Quebec women are
Quebec's kind of the
great.
women
The
province, though.
Queens were the defending champions going into this, I believe. But unfortunately, Sophie de Goody graduated, so she couldn't
Yeah,
represent them anymore.
that's
Um,
damper on the
and
roster.
and
Remember
yeah, I
Sophie de Goody last year? She like played like an international test match the same week as the
yeah.
university championship, right? Like
Yeah.
played Oklahoma,
So
right?
so to tell you like how stacked both these teams were from BC
Mm.
is that UVic had Maddie Grant
Mm,
as in the team, and she also won Player of the Game.
no kidding.
Um, but the try scorer for UBC was Olympic silver medalist Charity Williams. I
Man.
mean, come on, that just feels like cheating at that point, really. I mean. Oh, here comes a silver medalist coming to show you how it's done. But overall, this was a incredibly close game, considering the results of previous encounters. It was 3-0 at halftime to UBC for picking up a penalty. Then Charity Williams got the try in the 65th before UVic got the penalty in the 68th minute. But yeah, this was like a very intense game, equally matched in attack and defense, with obviously Charity Williams being the decision maker to tip it in UBC's favor. So congratulations to the Thunderbirds, their first women's championship. Well done. Now we're going to take a brief step away because down in the USA, there was a development invitational tournament for wheelchair rugby, and the three teams taking part were the USA, Great Britain, and Canada. Now, obviously, following on from the Paralympics, this is the opportunity for new players to come in and put their hands up for potential future tournaments. And as a result, a lot of new players taking part for Canada, which means that the results didn't go their way. I believe there was only one victory, that was against Great Britain, two losses to Great Britain as well, and three losses against the USA. This also marks the final tournament for Wheelchair Rugby Canada's head coach, Pat Coate. So there will be a new coaching structure taking place from 2025 onwards, Patco obviously got them to runners up in the World Wheelchair Rugby Championship as well as the Pan Am Games in Santiago last year, and took them to the Paralympics where they finished sixth. So thanks for everything, coach, and all the best in whatever you decide to choose next. Now, we're going to conclude this with the looking ahead to the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship, which we're recording on Tuesday, the 12th of November. That means that the tournament will have begun by the time this goes out, and hopefully, we still have the final to look forward to on the 20th. So the current seeding and fixtures have the UBC Thunderbirds in first as the BC University champions, the University of Guelph as the OUA champions second, UVic as the BC runners-up in third, Memorial as the Atlantic champions in fourth, École de Technologie Suprême as the RSEQ champions in fifth, Queens as the OUA runner-up in sixth, the Ottawa GGs as the hosts and RSEC runners-up in seventh, and the UBC Okanagan as the Prairies champions in eighth. So the opening rounds include UBC versus UBC. Okay. No, no, seriously, it's UBC and versus UBC Okanagan. So it is UBC OK. Then we have Memorial versus ATS, University of Guelph versus Ottawa, and Victoria versus Queens, which means that the way the seeding and the tournament is going to go, it looks very much that it will be UBC versus UVic in the final again.
What a shock. What a
Yeah,
shock.
what a turnout for the Bucks. I never saw this coming. Once in a lifetime kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, UBC versus UBC in the opening round. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say UBC is gonna win that game. Um, but yeah, I think the interesting competition we have to look forward to is probably who's going to be vying for third, who's going to be in the fifth place consolation game. Um,
Someone will get upset. There's always one. There's always
yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, again, this seems to be like unlike the women's tournament. It seems like it's only going to BC with the CUMRC. So I
it,
don't know. Yeah, it's going to be UBC versus Vikes in the final, probably, unless
there's who
although
get
by
upset.
next episode we'll have a correction on that if it's changed.
Yeah.
But all the games are available to watch on the Rugby Network.
Yeah.
And if you want to watch any other games this season, I believe that the Autumn Nation series of the Tier 1 nations at least will be on the zone. The Premiership in URC is currently on hold for those test games. But the Premiership Women's Rugby is currently taking place, and you can watch those games on the Rugby Network. Now, although it was a pretty much negative filled episode, if you have enjoyed this one, be sure to check out more as well as our written pieces on our website, therougerugby.ca. You can also find the podcast on Spotify, S4P, and Apple Podcasts. We have our YouTube channel at The Rouge Rugby with episodes of the podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all our videos. We're also available across social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, all at The Rouge Rugby. Derek, where can people find you on social media?
At Brissette the Jet across all social media platforms. And I did just check the Men's Rugby Championship schedule. Unfortunately, there is no game at the same time Canada plays Romania. So unfortunately, that's not another option. Not another option.
Well, you can fill your time instead by trying to find me on social media. I'm across all social media platforms at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. That's where we're going to end this episode. Derek, thank you for joining me, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Rouge Rugby Podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.
And go Argos.
Go Argos.